What if I told you that the Europe we know today, with its open borders, powerful alliances, and democratic values, was shaped not just by wars, treaties, or revolutions, but by a silent conflict that never exploded into full-scale battle? The Cold War didn't just divide Europe, it built the foundation of modern Europe in ways most people never realize. Behind the speeches, military standoffs, and nuclear threats, the Cold War quietly rewrote the political, economic, and even psychological landscape of an entire continent. And the truth you never knew is that much of what defines Europe today, its unity, its divisions, and even its institutions, can be traced directly back to that long, tense standoff between East and West. At the end of World War II, Europe was in ruins. Bombed cities, destroyed economies, and millions of displaced people created a sense of urgency among the Allies. But peace didn't bring unity. Instead, it brought a new kind of rivalry. The Soviet Union and the United States, once allies against Nazi Germany, quickly became adversaries. Their conflicting ideologies, communism and capitalism, became weapons in a battle for influence over Europe. With the continent essentially split between the Soviet-controlled East and the Western Allies, a line was drawn that would shape everything for decades to come. Western Europe, supported by the United States, underwent a rapid transformation thanks to the Marshall Plan. Billions of dollars were funneled into reconstruction. This wasn't just about economic recovery, it was a strategic move to strengthen Western Europe against the spread of communism. The success of this plan helped solidify democratic institutions, free market economies, and the beginning of cooperation between nations. In many ways, it laid the groundwork for what would later become the European Union. Without the Cold War, this level of Western unity might never have emerged. Meanwhile, Eastern Europe took a dramatically different path. Under Soviet control, countries like Poland, Hungary, East Germany, and Czechoslovakia were turned into communist states, aligned with Moscow's vision. The USSR installed puppet governments, crushed political dissent, and built a surveillance state that controlled every aspect of life. This wasn't just about politics, it was about shaping an entire society. Eastern Europeans lived under censorship, isolation, and fear. These decades of control left deep scars, and even today, the effects of that repression still influence politics and society in the East. The Cold War also militarized the continent in ways that transformed European security forever. NATO was created in 1949 as a defensive alliance against Soviet aggression. In response, the Soviets formed the Warsaw Pact in 1955. These alliances did more than build military strength, they created clear zones of influence. Every move was calculated, every alliance was strategic, and Europe became the stage for a global chess match. Even though the Cold War never turned hot in Europe, the threat of nuclear war hung over every decision. This constant tension led to massive defense spending, the placement of nuclear weapons across European soil, and a population that lived under the shadow of possible annihilation. But the Cold War wasn't just about politics or weapons, it was about people. In the East, many lived behind the Iron Curtain, cut off from the rest of the world. Travel was restricted, information was controlled, and life became a daily negotiation with the state. In the West, fears of communism shaped media, education, and even culture. Spy stories weren't just fiction, they were reflections of real events happening behind closed doors in places like Berlin, Vienna, and Prague. The division of Germany, and especially the Berlin Wall, became the most powerful symbol of this conflict, a concrete reminder that Europe was split not by geography, but by ideology. Then came the 1980s. As economic struggles deepened in the East and reform movements gained momentum, the Soviet grip began to weaken. In 1989, the unthinkable happened, the Berlin Wall fell. Within months, communist regimes across Eastern Europe collapsed. Within 2 years, the Soviet Union itself was gone. And yet, the Cold War's end wasn't just a victory for the West, it was a massive reshaping of Europe. Countries that had been controlled by the Soviets rushed to join NATO and the European Union. Former enemies became partners. Borders opened, markets were liberalized, and the idea of a whole and free Europe became a reality, at least in theory. But here's the truth most people don't realize: the Cold War didn't just leave Europe with scars. It also gave Europe its modern identity. The institutions we take for granted, the EU, NATO, the Eurozone, were either formed or strengthened because of Cold War politics. The East's struggles with democratic reform, corruption, and economic disparity are direct results of the decades they spent under authoritarian rule. The West's deep commitment to unity and shared values was forged in opposition to a common threat. Even the tension between Russia and the West today can be seen as a continuation of old Cold War rivalries, just under a different name. So next time you see a train cross an open border in the Schengen area, or hear about NATO deploying troops in Eastern Europe, remember that these aren't just modern developments, they're Cold War legacies. The Cold War may have ended in 1991, but its fingerprints are all over the map of Europe, hidden in plain sight. And the truth is, you can't